Ken Schreiber and Jeff Sutherland. The Scrum Guide, the definite guide to Scrum, the rules of game, November 2020. Purpose of the Scrum Guide. We developed Scrum in early 1990s. We wrote the first version of the Scrum Guide in 2010 to help people worldwide understand Scrum. We have evolved the guide since then through small functional updates. Together we stand behind it. The Scrum Guide contains definition of Scrum. Each element of framework serves a specific purpose that is essential to overall value and results realized with Scrum. Changing the core designer ideas of Scrum, leaving out elements, or not following the rules of Scrum covers the problem and limits the benefit of Scrum, potentially even rendering it useless. We follow the growing use of Scrum within ever-growing complex world. We are humbled to see Scrum being adopted in many domains, holding essentially complex work. Behind software product development where Scrum has its roots, a Scrum uses spreads, developers, researchers, analysts, scientists, and other specialists do the work. We use the word developers in Scrum not to exclude but to simplify. If you get value from Scrum, consider yourself included. Scrum is being used, pattern, processes, and insights that fit the Scrum framework as described in this document may be found, applied, and devised. The description is behind the purpose of the Scrum Guide because they are context sensitive and differ widely between the Scrum uses. Such tactics for using within the Scrum framework vary widely and are described elsewhere. Ken Schreiber and Jeff Sutherland, November 2020. Scrum Definition. Scrum is a lightweight framework that helps people, teams, and organizations generate value through adaptive solutions for complex problems. In a nutshell, Scrum requires a Scrum Master to foster an environment where a product owner orders the work for a complex problem into product backlog. A Scrum team turns a selection of work into increment of value during sprint. A Scrum team and its stakeholders inspect the results and adjust for the next sprint. Fourth, repeat. Scrum is simple, try it as is and determine if its philosophy, theory and structure help to achieve goals and create value. The Scrum framework is purposefully incomplete, only defining the parts required to implement Scrum theory. Scrum is built upon by the collective intelligence of the people using it. Rather than provide people with the detailed instructions, rule of Scrum guide their relationships and interactions. Various processes, techniques, and methods can be employed within the framework. Scrum wraps around existing practices or renders them unnecessary. Scrum makes visible the relative efficacy of the current management environment and work techniques so that improvements can be made. Scrum theory. Scrum is founded on empiricism and lean thinking. Empiricism asserts that knowledge comes from experience and making decisions based on that what is observed. Lean thinking reduces waste and focuses on essentials. Scrum implies an iterative, incremental approach to optimize predictability and to control risk. Scrum engages groups of people who collectively have all the skills and expertise to do the work and share or acquire such skills as needed. Scrum combines 4 formal events for inspection and adaptation within the containing event, the sprint. These events work because they implement the empirical Scrum pillars of transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Transparency. The emergent process and work must be visible to those performing the work as well as those receiving the work. With Scrum, important decisions are based upon the perceived state of its three formal artifacts. Artifacts that have low transparency can lead to decisions that diminish value and increase risk. Transparency enables inspection. Inspection without transparency is misleading and wasteful. Inspection. The Scrum artifacts and the progress towards agreed goal must be inspected frequently and diligently to detect potentially undesirable variances or problems. To help with inspection, Scrum provides guidance in the form of retrospective events. Inspection enables adaptation. Inspection without adaptation is considered pointless. Scrum events are designed to provoke change. Adaptation. If any aspect of the process deviates outside acceptable limit or if the resulting product is unacceptable, the process being applied or the materials being produced must be adjusted. The adjustment must be made as soon as possible to minimize further deviation. Adaptation becomes more difficult when people involved are not empowered or self-managing. A Scrum team is expected to adapt the moment it learns anything new through inspection. Scrum Values. Successful use of Scrum depends on people becoming more proficient in living 5 values: commitment, focus, openness, respect, and courage. The Scrum team commits to achieving its goal and to supporting each other. Their primary focus is on the work of sprint to make the best possible progress towards these goals. The Scrum team and stakeholders are open about their work and challenges. Scrum team members respect each other to be capable, independent people and are respected by the people with whom they work. The Scrum team members have the courage to do the right thing, to work on tough problems. These values give direction to Scrum team with regard to their work, actions and behavior. The decisions that are made, the steps taken and the way Scrum is used should reinforce these values, not diminish or undermine them. The Scrum team members learn and explore the values as they work with Scrum events and artifacts. When these values are embodied by the Scrum team and the people they work with, the empirical Scrum pillars of transparency, inspection, and adaptation come to life, building trust. Scrum team. The fundamental unit of Scrum is a small team of people, a Scrum team. The Scrum team consists of one Scrum Master, one product owner, and developers. Within a Scrum team, there are no sub-teams or hierarchies. It is a cohesive unit of professionals focused on one objective at a time, the product goal. Scrum teams are cross-functional, meaning the members have all the skills necessary to create value each sprint. They are also self-managing, meaning they internally decide who does what, when and how. The Scrum team is small enough to remain nimble and large enough to complete significant work within a sprint, typically 10 or fewer people. In general, we have found that smaller teams communicate better and are more productive. If the Scrum team becomes too large, they should consider reorganizing into multiple passive Scrum teams, each focus on the same product. Therefore, they should share the same product goal, product backlog, and product owner. The Scrum team is responsible for all product-related activity from stakeholder collaboration, verification, maintenance, operation, experimentation, research and development, and everything else that might be required. They are structured and empowered by the organization to manage their own work. Working in sprint at sustainable pace improves the Scrum team's focus and consistency. The entire Scrum team is accountable for creating a value useful increment every sprint. Scrum defines three specific accountabilities within the Scrum team: the developers, the product owner, and the Scrum Master. Developers. Developers are the people in the Scrum team that are committed to creating any aspect of usable increment each sprint. The specific skills needed for developers are often broad and will vary with the domain of work. However, the developers are always accountable for creating a plan for a sprint backlog, instilling quality by adhering to the definition of done, adopting their plan each day towards sprint goal, and holding each other accountable as professionals. Product owner. Product owner is accountable for maximizing the value of the product resulting from the work of the sprint team, Scrum team. How this is done may vary across organizations, Scrum teams, and individuals. The product owner is also accountable for effective product backlog management, which includes developing and explicitly communicating the product goal, creating and clearly communicating product backlog items, ordering product backlog items, and ensuring that the product backlog is transparent, visible, and understood. The product owner may do the above work or may delegate the responsibility to others. Regardless, the product owner remains accountable. For a product owner to succeed, the entire organization must respect their decisions. These decisions are visible in the content and ordering of the product backlog and through the inspectable increment at the sprint review. The product owner is one person, not a committee. Product owner may represent the need of many stakeholders in the product backlog. Those wanting to change the product backlog can do so by trying to convince the product owner. Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is accountable for establishing Scrum as defined in the Scrum Guide. They do this by helping everyone understand Scrum theory and practice, both within the Scrum team and the organization. Scrum Master is accountable for the Scrum team's effectiveness. They do this by enabling the Scrum team to improve its practices within the Scrum framework. Scrum Masters are true leaders who serve the Scrum team and the larger organization. Scrum Masters serve the Scrum team in several ways, including coaching the team members in self-management and cross-functionality, helping Scrum team focus on creating high-value increments that meet the definition of done, causing the removal of impediments to Scrum team's progress, and ensuring that all the Scrum events take place and are positive, productive, and kept within the time box. Scrum Masters serve the product owner in several ways, including helping find techniques for effective product goal definition and product backlog management, helping the Scrum team understand the need of clear and concise product backlog items, helping establish empirical product planning for a complex environment, and facilitating stakeholder collaboration as requested or needed. The Scrum Master serves the organization in several ways, including leading, training, coaching, and organizing in its Scrum adaptation, planning, advising Scrum implementation within the organization, helping employees and stakeholders understand and enact an empirical approach for complex work, and removing barriers between stakeholders and Scrum teams. Scrum Events. Sprint Scrum Events. The sprint is container for all others events. Each event in the Scrum is a formal opportunity to inspect and adopt Scrum artifacts. These events are specifically designed to enable the transparency required. Failure to operate any events as described result in lost opportunity to inspect and adopt. Events are used in Scrum to create regularity and to minimize the need for meetings not defined in the Scrum. Optimally, all events are held at the same time and place to reduce complexity. The sprint. Sprints are the heartbeat of Scrum, where ideas are turned into value. They are fixed length events of 1 month and less to create consistency. A new sprint starts immediately after the conclusion of previous sprint. All the work necessary to achieve the product goal, including the sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, and sprint retrospective, happens within the sprint. During the sprint, no changes are made that would endanger the sprint goal. Quality does not decrease. The product backlog is refined as needed, and scope may be clarified and renegotiated with the Scrum owner as more is learned. Sprints enable predictability by ensuring inspection and adaptation of progress towards the product goal at least every calendar month. When sprint's horizon is too long, the sprint goal may become invalid. Complexity may rise. A risk may increase. Shorter sprint can be implied to generate more learning cycles and limit risk of cost and effect to smaller time frame. Each sprint may be considered as a short project. Various practices exist to forecast progress like burn down, burn up, and cumulative loss. While proven useful, these do not replace the importance of empiricism. In complex environment, what will happen is unknown. Only what has already happened may be used for forward-looking decision making. A sprint could be cancelled if the sprint goal becomes obsolete. Only the product owner has the authority to cancel the sprint. Sprint planning. Sprint planning initiates the sprint by laying out the work to be performed for the sprint. This resulting plan is created by the collaborative work of the entire Scrum team. The product owner ensures that the attendees are prepared to discuss the most important product backlog items and how they map the product goal. The Scrum team may also invite other people to attend sprint meeting to provide advice. Sprint planning addresses the following topics. Topic 1. Why is this sprint valuable? The product owner proposes how the product could increase its value and utility in the current sprint. The whole Scrum team then collaborates to define the sprint goal that communicates why the sprint is valuable to stakeholders. The sprint goal must be finalized prior to the end of sprint planning. Topic 2. What can be done this sprint? Through discussion with product owners, the developers select the item from the product backlog to include in the current sprint. The Scrum team may refine these items during the process, which increases understanding and confidence. Selecting how much can be completed within a sprint may be challenging. However, the more these developers know about their past performance, their upcoming capacity, and their definition of done, the more confident they will be in their sprint forecasts. Topic 3. How will the chosen work get done? For each selected product backlog item, developer plan the work necessary to create an increment that meets the definition of done. This is often done by decomposing product backlog item into smaller work items of 1 day or less. How this is done is at the code discretion of the developers. No one else tells them how to turn product backlog item into increment of value. The sprint goal. Product backlog item selected for the Scrum sprint plus the plan for delivering them are together referred as the sprint backlog. Sprint planning is time boxed to maximum of 8 hours for 1 month sprint. For shorter sprint, the event is usually shorter. Daily Scrum. The purpose of daily Scrum is to inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adopt the sprint backlog as necessary, adjusting the upcoming plan work. The daily Scrum is a 15-minute event for developers of Scrum Team. To reduce complexity, it is held at the same time and place every working day of the sprint. If the product owner or Scrum Master are actively working on item in the sprint backlog, they participate as developers. The developers can select whatever structure and techniques they want, as long as their daily Scrum focuses on progress toward the sprint goal and produces an acceptable plan for the next day of work. This creates focus and improves self-management. Daily Scrum improves communication, identify impediments, promote quick decision making, and consequently eliminates the need of other meetings. The daily Scrum is not the only time developers are allowed to adjust their plan. They often meet throughout the day for more detailed discussion about adopting or replanning the rest of sprint work. Sprint review. The purpose of the sprint review is to inspect the outcome of the sprint and determine future adaptations. The Scrum team presents the result of their work to key stakeholders and progress toward the product goal is discussed. During the event, the Scrum team and stakeholders review what was accomplished in the sprint and what has changed in their environment. Based on this information, attendees collaborate on what to do next. The product backlog may also be adjusted to meet new opportunities. The sprint review is a working session, and the Scrum team should avoid limiting to the presentation. The sprint review is the second to last event of the sprint, and time boxed to maximum of 4 hours for 1 month sprint. For shorter sprint, the event is usually shorter. Sprint retrospective. The purpose of the sprint retrospective is to plan ways to increase quality and effectiveness. The Scrum team inspects how the last sprint went with regard to individual interaction, processes, tools, and their definition of done. Inspected elements often vary with the domain of work. Assumptions that led them astray are identified and their origins explored. The Scrum team discusses what went well during the sprint, what problem it encountered, and how those problems were or were not solved. The Scrum team identifies the most useful changes to improve its effectiveness. The most impactful improvements are discussed as soon as possible. They may even be added to the sprint backlog for the next sprint. The sprint retrospective concludes the sprint. It is time boxed to a maximum of 3 hours for 1 month sprint. For shorter sprint, the event is usually shorter. Scrum artifacts. Scrum's artifacts represent work or value. They are designed to maximize transparency of key information. Thus, everyone inspecting them has the same basis for adaptation. Each artifact contains a commitment to ensure it provides information that enhances transparency and focus against which progress can be measured. For the product backlog, it is product goal. For the sprint backlog, it is sprint goal. For the increment, it is definition of done. These commitments exist to reinforce empiricism and Scrum values for the Scrum team and their stakeholders. Product backlog. The product backlog is an emergent order list of what is needed to improve the product. It is the single source of work undertaken by the Scrum team. Product backlog items that can be done by the Scrum team within one sprint can be deemed ready for selection in the sprint planning event. They usually acquire this degree of transparency after refining activities. Product backlog refinement is the act of breaking down and further defining product backlog items into smaller, more precise items. This is an ongoing activity to add details such as description, order, and size. Attributes often vary with the definite domain of work. The developers who will be doing the work are responsible for the sizing. The product owner may influence the developer by helping them understand the select trade-offs. Commitment, product goal. Commitment, product goal. The product goal describes the future state of the product which can serve as the target for the Scrum teams to plan against. The product goal is the product backlog. The rest of product backlog emerges to define what will fulfill the product goal. A product is a vehicle to deliver value. It has clear boundary, no stakeholders, well-defined users and customers. A product could be a service, a physical product, or something more abstract. The product goal is the long-term objective for this company. They must fulfill abundant one objective before taking the next. Sprint backlog. The sprint backlog is composed of sprint goal Y and the rest of product backlog items selected for the sprint what, and as well as an actionable plan for delivering the increment how. The sprint backlog is planned by and for the developer. It is highly visible, real-time picture the work that the developer planned to accomplish during the sprint in order to achieve the sprint goal. Consequently, the sprint backlog is updated through the sprint and more result. It should have enough detail that they can inspect their progress in daily Scrum. Commitment, sprint goal. The sprint goal is a single objective for the sprint. Although the sprint goal is a commitment by the developer, it provides flexibility in terms of exact work needed to achieve it. The sprint goal also creates cohesion and focus, encouraging the Scrum team to work together rather than in separate individuals. The sprint goal is created during the sprint planning event and then added to sprint backlog. As the developer work during the sprint, they keep the sprint goal in mind. If the work turns around to be different than the expected, they collaborate with the product owner to negotiate the scope of the sprint backlog. within the sprint without affecting the sprint goal. Increment. An increment is a concrete stepping stone toward the product goal. Each increment is additive to all prior increments and thoroughly verified, ensuring that all increments work together in order to provide value. The increment must be usable. Multiple increments may be created within the sprint. The sum of the increments is presented at the sprint review, thus supporting empiricism. However, an increment may be delivered to stakeholders prior to the end of sprint. The sprint review should never be considered a gate to releasing value. Work cannot be considered as part of increment unless it meets the definition of done. Commitment. Definition of done. The definition of done is a formal description of the state of the increment when it meets the quality measures required for this product. The moment a product backlog item meets definition of done, an increment is born. The definition of done creates transparency by providing everyone a shared understanding of what work was completed as part of increment. If a product backlog item does not meet the definition of done, it cannot release or even present it at the sprint review. Instead, it turns to the product backlog for future consideration. If the definition of done for increments is a part of standards for the organization, all the Scrum team must follow it as a minimum. If it is not a organization standard, the Scrum team must create a definition of done appropriate for the product. The developers are required to conform to definition of done. If there are multiple Scrum teams working together on a product, they must mutually define and comply with the same definition of done. End note. Scrum is free and offered in this guide. The Scrum framework as outlined herein is immutable. While implementing only part of Scrum is possible, the result is not Scrum. Scrum exists only in its entirety and functions well as a container for other techniques, methodologies and practices. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening. Please provide your feedback. Bye. Bye. Bye.